Hello and welcome to yet another video, and in this video it is something special and also a little bit different, but not too different. So usually on my channel I usually make a lot of videos about old digital SLRs as well as the old digital mirrorless cameras, but never really touch on the older classic film cameras, the 35mm photo film cameras. This one is, the Voigtländer Vito BL. Yeah. I can never really remember the name, but it's one of my favorite film cameras to use. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So the Voigtländer Vito BL, this camera has been out for a while. I know it's not built anymore, but you can find it really cheap on the marketplace for like roughly 25 to 30 euros. If you're paying more, it might be too much, I think, because I got mine for around 25 euros and I actually saw some going for around 15 euros. Now, of course, this varies depending on which part of the world you live in. Some part it can be a little bit more expensive, but some part it can be a bit cheaper. If you're up to like looking for a certain serial number, then it can even be more expensive than that. But this particular model, as far as I'm concerned, there's no like special serial number to really go for, like if you're hunting for a certain Leica or something, which is going to be way more expensive. Anyway, in this video, it's more of like my thoughts on this camera rather than a review video. So yeah, just keep that in mind. It's pretty much based on how I use the camera. I'm going to talk about the ergonomic side of things, the build quality, operationally side of things, and lastly the image quality and my conclusion. So first off, the ergonomics and the build quality, well, how it operates in general. So the build quality is really nice. It's mostly metal construction. It's really solid, and if you hit someone in the head, they will definitely feel the weight of it because it is heavy. Anyway, the ring here is really smooth. It's really smooth to turn, the manual focus ring, as well as the operational ring here, like the shutter and the aperture ring. They're all really nice. The shutter ring is actually, there's a click to it, but you don't really hear it that much when you turn it, unless if you turn it really hard. And on the actual aperture ring here, there's a lock on both sides that you need to unlock by pressing it and then moving it. So it's really nice. And then you have the type of shutter. Well, I believe it's a type of shutter on the side here. And there was actually a cold shoe up here, but on this particular camera, it fell off. And the previous owner never really bothered to put it back on for some reason. I have two of these cameras. This is my second one. The first one I gave to my girlfriend, and that one actually had a nice leather case with it. And it was a bit more expensive simply because of that leather case. It was real leather and also came with a leather strap. But yeah, that was around 50 euros. So another 25 euros on top of the camera price. I think for leather it was justifiable, and it needed a little bit of cleaning up because that leather case was also probably from the 1950s. So yeah, there's that. And there are these two hooks right here for old type straps, which I can't really seem to find on the market here in Northern Europe anymore. So yeah, but I'm working on making like a handmade one, like self-made one strap to go with it. If you buy the one with the leather case, then it obviously will come with the, in most cases it will come with the actual leather strap itself. But anyway, the control and everything feels very nice. What I like about this camera is that the shutter button, it only stops at half a shutter. So you won't be pressing the shutter button by accident unless if you fully rewind the actual film. And yeah, oh, and at first it took me a while because I was not used to this film camera when I got this film camera like a few years ago, is that there's this button. For me it's kind of like hidden, and I did not know it was a button, but you have to press this, hold back, and then this comes up. So after you finish shooting your film, you roll this back and then you can actually open the door here, unlock it, this comes out, and then you can take your film out and then put the new film in. But I'm not going to do that right now because I have a fresh roll of film in here and I don't want to damage it, because I actually accidentally damaged quite a few films by not knowing that there was a film in the camera in the first place. Which is my next point about the actual build of this camera. It's not really about the build quality per se, but the actual design of it rather, because in more modern film 35mm format analog cameras, there are usually slots over here where you can put in the tag of the film you're using, so you know that you actually have a film in there and what kind of film. Whereas this one, if I just leave it on the shelf for like a couple of months and then come back to the camera, I may or may not remember that I have a film in there, and if I do remember that I have a film in there, I wouldn't know which kind of film I have in there, because I'm actually using 3 main but actually very common films in all of my film cameras, which is the Ilford? The Agfa black and white 400 and the Kodak Gold 200 and 400 depending on the scenario, and then the Fujifilm either 200 or 400 in there. So yeah, those are the 3 main films I usually have, and they're usually the most common films out there, at least here in Northern Europe, and they're actually really affordable, because for one black and white is like €6.50 from Agfa. And that's a professional film, unless if you buy it in a physical store in Netherlands, it's really expensive. But if you buy it in a physical store in Germany, that's about the price, but it's about €10 here in the Netherlands. So yeah, and also the Kodak usually runs for like, a pack of 3 is usually around €7. If you get it more than €8 for a pack of 3, then that's very, very, very expensive. And then there's Fuji. One roll is around like €5.50 to €6.50 for one roll. So usually it's just more cost saving to just go for the one pack of 3 rolls for the Kodak Gold, because it's under €8. Sometimes you can get it really lucky for like €6.50, and these are like the non-expired films. These are like fresh films that they just put in stock. So yeah, there's that. Anyway, there's not much to complain about the design otherwise of the camera. The rangefinder here, it's actually a normal viewfinder with the lining of the approximate frame that you're gonna get with the actual image, but it's not a real rangefinder in the way that if you twist the knob here, it will align where you're gonna focus. So you really have to do a proper guesstimate of where your subject is, and then just turn up here. This is actually measured in meter. So yeah, it's really convenient for me because I don't use feet. On some of the older cameras you have feet on there or some other measurement, but most film cameras will have meters as their measurement, which is nice because I use meter, obviously. Yeah. Oh, and there's one more thing. The actual light meter, it's best to actually use a proper light meter than the one that actually comes with the camera, unless if you're super confident with reading it and trusting it. Because in most cases, it's not reliable, and in a lot of cases, the light meter is actually broken because it's old cameras, and it's actually a very common issue with the older Voigtlander cameras in this style, in the Vito model. So next up, onto the image quality. Well, the actual image, the look of the image, really depends on the film that you have, because that's actually kind of like the sensor of the camera. But the lenses actually produce sharp enough results, but not too sharp that it looks so modern, but you still know that it was taken by a really, really, really old film camera, because the sharpness of the lenses of like this kind of camera at that period of time really give it a really unique characteristic. You know that's sharp, but it's just not completely sharp, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna roll some of the image slideshow while I talk about the image quality, just to give you idea of what I mean. So yeah, it has character to it, to the lens. Obviously, it's not the perfect lens, and it does have some sort of chromatic aberration as well, but it doesn't really vignette a lot because it's a standard focal length lens. It's not like a super wide or a super telephoto where you might have pin cushion or barrel distortion that's going to be super apparent. But it's a really, really fun camera to use if you're just after for like a really vintage look of the image. So aside from the film look that you have chosen for the camera that determines how the image will look and feel in terms of the mood and the tonality of the image, after you develop the film, the actual lens here really just give it a nice vintage touch as well, because the characteristic of the sharpness, the contrast control, and well, lack thereof really, really shows the characteristic of this particular lens that's built into this camera. And I wouldn't say it's bad, it's actually pretty nice to look at. And yeah, that's pretty much it about the image quality. Not much to say. It's not a modern digital camera where you have to go about the color science or the color depth or the color reproduction, things like that. It's really just about the film you pick and if you like the look of the lenses that this camera actually produces. So yeah, this camera does not take any batteries, so there's that. It's completely manual camera, which is nice, so you don't need to be worrying about the battery. But if you're new to using this kind of camera, then I suggest maybe if you want to go cheaper route on learning on this camera, then download the Light Meter app on your phone, and then it just might help you with metering the actual exposure and try to get as close to the exposure that you want or the correct exposure as possible. And yeah, so my conclusion on this camera, I think I really highly recommend this camera, to be honest. I mean, it's really affordable at around 25 euros, give or take, depending on where you live. And it's a really fun classic camera to use if you really want to dive into the full manual of classic cameras, even measuring the light yourself or guesstimating the light yourself. And also this camera is really portable. It's not too heavy, it has some weight to it, but it's definitely really portable, small, and I usually take alongside with my digital SLRs and mirrorless cameras when I travel to new places, just to have a different look and feel to the images, because my digital images will look really different from these cameras, and there's some sort of the imperfection of these cameras on how the lens was designed and made at that time with its technology available for this type of camera, that I cannot personally replicate the look that much. I can replicate the actual color tone, of course, but the lens has some sort of imperfection to it that makes it look nice. But then again, this is just my thought, and it's very subjective to how I shoot with this camera, and yeah. But personally, I would definitely really recommend getting this camera. Even if you're starting out with film, I think you will learn a ton, like you will learn a lot with this kind of camera. So yeah. And it's also a really nice camera to have as a decoration if you're into those things, because it's built in 1950s and it has a bit of history to it, and the build quality really shows how much it really survived and how tough it really is through time. So yeah, that's it for this little short, my thought on this camera video. If you need a free photography guidebook, it's linked down in the description below, together with my free 2021 photography calendar. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, have fun shooting, and bye for now.